Hello and welcome again to In the Halls of Spidle. As you can see, we're bringing our conversation outdoors once again to enjoy the fresh air as we share. We are just outside Spidle Hall, home to the College of Human Sciences here at Auburn University. And in this segment, you meet the people who through their work are taking life-changing steps, living into the mission statement of improving quality of life and changing the world. Our guest today is someone who can tell you and me how we're doing in our relationships, in our marriages, in our families, the impact of these relationships, and the work underway to improve upon them. So Dr. Francesca Adler-Baeder, thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Yes, you're a professor with the Human Development and Family Science program, and you're also the project director of a really important educational initiative. Before we dig into that, let's get straight to the impact of our relationships on our well-being and on the communities in which we live. It's really core, isn't it?
It really is core. And so the term that I actually really like to use is a focus on our relational health. So if you think about the health promotion initiatives that we have in our communities around the country, we're not always talking about that dimension, that very important dimension of relational health. And yet we have decades of research that show the link between how our particular couple relationships in the family are doing and how we're doing individually in our psychological and mental health and in our physical health. There is fascinating research that links even like the healing rates post-surgery as being linked to the quality of the couple interactions. It absolutely manifests in our health behaviors, and it impacts our sleep. We have a researcher here who's very prominent in the research she does, Dr. Mona El-Sheikh, on the link between couple conflict and aggression in relationships, how that influences sleep, and then how that manifests into things like lower immune system, lower performance in work. It has an effect not just on the individual and their potential for disease, formation or progression, which is very scary, but also think about children in the home. And so what's happening in our relational health, again, particularly the adult relationships, is manifesting across the family system. So children exposed to even moderate levels of pretty consistent, moderate levels of conflict at consistent levels, kind of unmanaged conflict, are manifesting as well in their physical health and well-being and their performance in school and educational attainment overall and success in the future. And of course that spills out into communities, right? So when things are not working well in the home, things are not working well in the workplace. Things are not working well in other community areas that you might normally be invested in. You have much less to invest if the relationships are not working well. So yes, I think absolutely here, in our College of Human Sciences and specifically in our Department of Human Development and Family Studies, we just feel really passionate about the essential element that relational health is and how it manifests to either enhance or threaten our quality of life, right?
The ripple effect is truly incredible. Well, you are the principal investigator and the project director of the Healthy Marriage and Relationship Education Initiative. And you have new numbers to share. You've been doing research with this initiative for 18 years. Hard to sum up all of that, Francesca, but can you give us a bit of a state of the state, a state of our relationships? How are we doing?
Yeah, we've been really fortunate, and when you say, your initiative, involves so many people.
Right.
What's really exciting for me to see is the investment that community agencies have made. So this is really, I think, a truly engaged research initiative. So from the beginning, we've partnered with family resource centers around the state, of course, through cooperative extension. We've involved undergraduate students, graduate students. We've created jobs within the initiative, and these are all, these are federal dollars coming from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. They're competitive, so we write proposals and secure the funding, and we've been successful now. This is our 15th year of kind of the larger funding that we're able to share with other community agencies. And the research has evolved to show that even an educational effort And the way I frame it is, our students can come into a classroom here in human sciences and take a class on healthy relationship skills, recognizing unhealthy relationships. So this, to me, this initiative is about taking the classroom to the community. And so we do that again through students, through faculty, literally out in the community agencies themselves are teaching classes. And I think in some ways it might feel even a little less threatening for people to say, oh, I'll go to a community education class. Therapy can sometimes feel a little intimidating, although we really encourage that connection. And the results, from school-based, this is the other, I think, exciting piece, is we've been teaching now predominantly in health classes. Healthy Relationship Smarts is the name of the curriculum, and we're seeing just in more knowledge and skills in conflict management, communication skills for youth, their general sense of efficacy in relationships, and spillover into their family, so better parent-child relationships. So this has been documented. We've published, in academic journals as well as more kind of stakeholder reports. And most recently, we actually did a random controlled trial of the couples classes. And so much like a vaccine trial, we randomly assigned couples to either participate in a class or not. So meaning we just then followed the two kind of growth trajectories over a 2-year period, and we have documented, we're actually beginning to release some of the publications on this, benefits and growth and gains in couple relationship quality, the skills themselves, importantly the spillover into mental health indicators, improvements for people who were in the program, and we're one of the first to document improvements in sleep.
Excellent.
So coming back to that basic science and the importance in the physical realm, and this is an educational class. And typically for those who had not participated in the class, it was more kind of the same across time. In some areas there were actually declines over time, and so it's some of the first evidence of this inoculation, right? This vaccine of a couple relationship class can be, I think, a very positive investment for couples that may benefit them over time.
Sure,
so we're excited about that.
Yes, head off the trouble before it's before you.
I think especially taking that educational realm, because for some couples it may be just maintenance, like coming in, going through the class, having fun. I mean, we're trying to make the classes fun and interesting and enjoyable, and it may be just affirmation for them over time. So they're maintaining, and then in that way it can serve, I think, as a protective factor, where they may then be facing challenges but have even more skills to kind of face those challenges.
Well, so many new numbers being released, and I have to point out this one. This one's pretty remarkable. On average, 97% of couples, adults, and youth taking part in the programs offered through the Healthy Marriage and Relationship Initiative, 97% say that it has helped them a lot or some. That is significant.
It feels good to see that. So just as a simple, overall, was this worth it for you? And to see, almost 100% of teens, now these are teens in high school, and then couples. And and I'll point out, actually, that number even reflects people who attend individually. So I should make that point too. We have had programs that have focused just on relational competence, and it was offered for people who are not currently in couple relationships. So it was, again, more educational, skill building, and to hear, yeah, this was worth it. That feels good to us.
And not only are you focusing on how to improve upon an existing relationship, but also how to recognize perhaps an abusive situation and walk away from it.
I feel so strongly about both elements, right? So the idea of enhancing relationships that you're in, but also this is an opportunity for us to educate about unhealthy relationships, recognizing signs and symptoms of physical abuse and psychological abuse. And very often psychological abuse is kind of the aha for people, and especially in our teen programs. In Alabama, unfortunately, we have been historically in the top 10 for highest levels of teen dating violence. So we feel very purposeful going into schools to help teens recognize when they're in an unhealthy situation And we have statistics on that that show a significant, it's a minority of students, but generally around 20% that will report that during the class they had some new information that helped them to make a decision to leave a relationship. And for couples, that proportion is there too. It tends to run about 10%. And I think about how important that is, right? That it's as much a marker of our program to success to move people out of unhealthy relationships. A marriage is an unhealthy place to be if it's unhealthy relationships, right? So marriage in and of itself is not the answer, right? And in fact, for many couples, it's very important that they can self-identify an unhealthy situation and make a better decision for themselves and their families.
Right. Well, let's zero in on the last 12 months or so, pandemic.
Yeah.
The effects of that on a relationship. We were talking about this earlier, and I have so many friends who said early on, this was so good for my family. Months into it, this is so hard for my family. There's been a lot of difficulty. What have you seen with this, and also what have we gained from it?
So when the pandemic started, about 6 months into it in August, we did another data collection point that had not been planned, but we had the opportunity to look at where were people before, just before the pandemic in March, and where were they after. We've just analyzed these data, so this spring I'll be releasing some reports on this, and I think it's some of the probably earliest data that may be coming out, particularly with kind of a large diverse sample, which I want to emphasize. The individuals participating with us, Alabama citizens, are a broad range of couples, you know, economically, racially, even the kinds of relationships that they're in, married, some not married, some same sex. And so we have, I think, a broad spectrum that we're getting a good picture of what's happening in Alabama, and it is much like you describe, and so now we have the documentation. By August, there is reductions in couple quality, reports of symptomology of anxiety and depression, particularly for men, is actually one of the findings. But in this report in August, in the survey, we asked them in qualitative questions to think back to April, a month into it. Tell us about the challenges, tell us about the benefits. And going through those data, it is a very clear pattern regardless of economic condition. That was surprising to me. So some people who were the same people saying, you know, I lost my job or my husband had to shut down his business, were the same that were saying, however, we take walks together. We're having dinner together as a family. I'm cooking more. So those kinds of like turning inward behaviors for many families seem to be very positive in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then we ask them to write about where they are now. And I think it is very clear, of course there's going to be some variation, but the general pattern was by August, really a lot of challenges. For many different reasons, some of it work-related. An interesting area of conflict for couples is the mask wearing and taking precautions, and there were many that described, I feel this way, my partner feels this way. It creates a lot of conflict in the family.
Just a new level of tension.
And
right.
and as a relationship researcher, I thought, you know, this is a new thing, a new area for couples potentially to have conflict about. So
yes, and
that's a little discouraging.
Exactly,
right?
It is.
At the same time, I can share that during the summer, we continued offering our classes. And we have data that shows those who participated online, and we had actually very easy recruitment. Classes filled quickly. People came for all the six sessions that we do. And we showed from pre to post improvements in couple quality, improvements in parenting, improvements in indicators of mental health. So those data feel very encouraging to us.
That is good to hear. So couples listening right now, struggling, what resources are out there? The classes, of course, but what would you advise them to do?
So I think it's really a sign of strength when you look for resources, when you look for help. So just making that effort, I think, is already a step in the the right direction. We have a website, and so there's resources available on AHMREI.org, and the timing is really good. We were in October notified that we have received from the federal government another 5 years of funding support, and so everything I've been describing, we can continue and expand over the next 5 years, and in March we'll begin more openly advertising for signing up for classes, and in April we'll start classes again. So those will be available in the schools, so going back out to the high schools, and again we'll see if that's going to be online or in person, and then the same with the couples classes. We'll be offering those through the university and 5 other sites that I can maybe do off the top of my head. Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Montgomery, SAFE is in Sylacauga, and Gadsden in that area.
I'm impressed. You had all 5
I
of
think
those.
I got them all.
Well, and you mentioned the additional funding for another 5 years. That was a grant of $12.5 million. And you mentioned earlier some of the things that's allowing you to do to take this to an even higher level. It's also producing, creating jobs across the state.
It is. So I think in terms of the grant funding, you know, these are our dollars, right? Our taxpayer dollars coming in. We compete for those. It brings resources into the university. We've been very fortunate to be funded now going on 20 years. And yeah, I think we just put together, it will be on our website, it shows how many jobs have been created here that are either staff on the project or full-time relationship educators. A lot of it goes right out to our family resource centers, and so the university is providing subcontracts to our partners and helping fund some of those positions, and our students. I mean, this is a learning opportunity. This is what we consider engaged research. This is research in the field, and the students come in with a lot of interest and energy, and for graduate students we can pay research assistantships and tuition waivers for them, and so they're learning and they're benefiting, you know, from the grant itself, and then the classes themselves are offered for free. We provide supports, again, through the grant funds, childcare if needed when we do in-person classes, meals, because often they're in the evenings, so things like that. So
excellent.
We're really excited that that's going to continue and grow, and it's, I mean, just in the last 5 years, 9,000 youth, and it was over 6,000 adults went through classes, and that was all covered for them. It was a free resource.
That's excellent. So take part. You have partners all across the state where these resources are free and available for everyone. And also, what do you hope people pull out of, I'd go back to the pandemic this last year, what did we gain that perhaps we can take forward in our relationships?
Reflecting myself too on what I was reading, and of course in my own family experiencing that as well, there was a lot of conversation in, you know, what was being written, that some of what the benefits were, which was I think a slow down, a more turn inward, a lot of extracurriculars kind of, you know, fell off and were no longer active, that I think people will re-engage in a different way. Hopefully we will start to see some more normalcy return this year, and I think people will make more informed decisions about how busy they want to be, because the busyness can often get in the way of your own individual self-care and the care of the relationships in your family. And so if there's a benefit to come from all of the challenges that people have been through, I think that's it. I think that will be the core of just rethinking how we spend each day and where we put our energy.
Well, and you may hear soon, this month, the governor has officially declared February as Healthy Marriage Month, an emphasis on healthy.
Absolutely, right. So as I mentioned, you know, it really isn't about structure, because so many diverse types of families have participated in the classes, and it is key is the healthy. And so we have for several years, the governor has called attention in February, you know, the month of love, to the importance that we have and the value that we have for strengthening families and strengthening really that couple relationship and co-parenting. I mean, I would mention that too, because in some families, the co-parenting relationship kind of across households, so vital for the adults themselves, for the children, and so this calls, you know, attention to those efforts, and kind of for us, the timing is great because then we'll start enrolling in more classes in March, and we can also make people aware of other resources in their community and written resources and online resources if that's more kind of to people's liking. So.
Yeah, they're out there. So yes,
Yeah.
do use them. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for your interest.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
And for all the work going on to help all of us have stronger relationships. And thank you for taking the time to tune into In the Halls of Spidle. Remember to go to alabamamarriage.org for more information on what you heard today. And we'll be with you again next month with another edition of In the Halls as we focus on all of those who are improving quality of life and changing the world. Until then, take care.